Welcome along to the Inner Huddle Series 2, Episode 9. I'm Pez, he's Geoff, and this episode is sponsored by SR Health, Safety and Engineering Limited. Straight in, won't we, Geoff? Straight in.
Straight in.
How you doing, mate?
Smashing, Pez. How are you?
Terrific. It's been a while.
Yeah, I'm feeling very out of touch.
Yeah, I seem to remember we start almost every episode now saying it's been a while.
Yeah.
And I mean, the idea was to try and do it every fortnight, but just with the amount of coaching and things we've got on, it's not always possible. But we are almost at the end of Series 2, because we'll do 10 episodes, and this is episode number 9. So almost there, Geoff. And have a little break, maybe. And then go again for Season 3. Can't wait.
Heads down, get through it. Yeah.
Heads down, get through it. That's become one of our mottos, isn't it? Tin hats on, dig deep, get through it. So, we have, Jeffrey, a list of questions in front of us that have been sent in by various people. And some of them came in a long time ago, and I've forgotten who they've come in from. But I have a list in front of me, and we will aim to answer them the best we can and add some value and give some advice from all our many years in the game.
There's some big long questions there, Pez.
There are some big long questions here.
This week, shall I read all the questions badly and you answer them brilliantly?
No.
No.
I think... No, we'll go alternate again.
Alright, can I do number one then?
Because it's a short one.
Odd ones look a bit shorter than the evens to me.
Brilliant.
Is that okay?
Yes, shall we just dive straight on in?
Question number one.
Yes.
My son plays for a team with his friends. Many of them have also started playing for another team. He'd really like to go along with them and play, but by his own admission, he's not as good as them. Do you have any tips on how you can improve quickly and help catch up?
Yeah, I guess that's what we do for a living, isn't it, Geoff, really? Accelerated football development. Difficult one. I mean, I've written down on my notes here, purposeful, deliberate practice. And that's the key. So contact time with the ball as much as possible. On his own, if you've got an area of the garden, or if you can take him to the park or something like that, or an area where he can practice his ball skills. What to practice? There's plenty of stuff on YouTube nowadays, isn't there, Geoff? Individual ball mastery practices. Dribbling practices, shooting practices. So I would hunt for things that you think you can do or got space for on YouTube, and facilitate the time, and then just maximising that time with plenty of contact time with the ball. I don't know what you think, Geoff?
Yeah, I think the way that the question's worded, it almost sounds like, I think it's exciting because the child probably thinks, oh, I can get so much better and catch up. And so as long as it stays with that mindset rather than we have to do this and we have to do this to be better, like almost like it's forced practice, as long as it's something that is a process that they can really get their teeth into and enjoy. And then the key is to really just keep showing up and do little bits every day if you can, isn't it? And you'll see quick progress as long as you're doing the right things.
And don't get frustrated with it as well, because it's not an easy thing to catch up. I mean, we don't know what levels we're talking about here, but it's slow improvement over a long period of time. And I think don't panic. Don't be scrambling to catch up. So always, if you're doing these practices, look for the quality of the practices as well as the quantity. And have some fun with it, and don't feel like it's the be all and end all to catch up, because these players, if it's a decent club and they're training, they'll be improving as well, and it might take a long time, but it's not maybe so much about catching up. It's just about their own journey and their own improvement, whether they wanted to get into another team with their friends or not. And I mean, maybe talk to this team that his friends are playing for and ask the coach's advice there. Maybe you can go training with them, and then they can tell you exactly which direction to take his individual training, or how close to it he's got to get, and just open up a bit of open dialogue and a bit of communication, and you might find that you can get involved quicker than you think.
Yeah, well answered, Pez. So this could be quite a quick.
It's never going to be quick.
Come on,
Geoff.
it can be. Believe.
It's never going to be quick. Right, shall we? Question number 2.
Question number 2. So they're yours, aren't they?
God, these are so long. These ones. Right. Try not to fall asleep whilst I read this out in my monotone voice. I have run an under 10 team for 2 seasons and have really enjoyed it. However, I found it hard to keep players for this season as many left to join another club that play in a more glamorous league. One of the players' dads literally tapped them all up towards the end of last season, having joined us at the start of the season, and they left in the summer, although one has already come back as it was far too serious and not much fun. It's really knocked my confidence, and the way I've been treated has had an effect on my enthusiasm to the point I'm not sure I want to do it anymore. Is tapping up a normal part of children's football, and should I quit if my enthusiasm has gone? What a question.
Yeah, it's a really good question, isn't it?
It's a very heartfelt question. I feel like we really do need to give this a lot of thought and try and add some value. Anything from you?
Whilst you were reading it, I underlined the part where you really enjoyed it at the start.
Yeah.
So have a think about what it was that gave you that enjoyment. I don't think there'll be many coaches that have been coaching for a little while that won't have experienced this, whether it is youth level or any level, isn't it? And it is heartbreaking when a player moves on, and you feel like you've given a lot.
Well, you give everything sometimes, don't you? Sacrifice.
Yeah.
Sacrifice your time, your money sometimes.
Counting up the birthdays you missed and nights out you've missed, and time with your family, or times where you could have gone to a game yourself for your own enjoyment rather than giving up your time for other people's enjoyment. But after that, I've also underlined one has come back already.
Says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, and also if you can reframe it so that if you can get your enjoyment back and everything you're doing for that one that has come back, that one that's come back is really important, isn't it? Even if it's just one child's childhood, really, isn't it, that you're making a difference to?
Well, it proves that it's nothing that this coach has done wrong, because otherwise that child wouldn't come back.
Yeah.
So it's just the fact that for whatever reason the grass is always greener type attitude. These players have gone because they've been sold some sort of dream or something, and been tapped up.
It actually speaks volumes that they have come back, because it's probably quite a difficult thing to do, isn't it, to come back?
Yeah, and they've come back to somewhere where they feel safe and comfortable and realise that they were happy. If they'd have been miserable at your club, they wouldn't have come back.
Yeah.
So I think it speaks volumes. And yes, it is soul destroying. Sometimes we get it a lot, don't we, Geoff? In fact, we get it more than most because, or perhaps I do, because I'm not a team. I just do group sessions with children on an individual training program to try and help them develop into better players that move better and are better at the game and love it and accelerate their learning. So sometimes, they get very good at what they do when they come to what we do, Geoff, because they're getting the right training and they're maximising the time and getting lots of purposeful practice. And when children start to get good, they get tapped up by teams that want them to come in and help them win games of football. And sometimes the training clashes with what we do, and then they disappear because it might be a glamorous league, like has been said in this question. And they disappear, and unfortunately quite often they do come back, or you pass across again in 1, 2, 3 years time, and they've been coached to be so average, and they might know the tactics and be aware of certain nuances of the game, but actually with the ball and being good at football they've gone backwards and a dog average, and it breaks my heart every time, Geoff. So I can really relate.
Yeah, and I've also just reread it again towards the end, and the way that I've been treated has affected my enthusiasm. It should really be a compliment that there's enough players there that have gone on to do really well that somebody else wanted them.
Yeah, so something's done
You've
right.
only been treated that way again because it's done right, which
Victim
is again
of your own success is
very similar to what you just described with Pezzaz street soccer, and it does happen all the time, doesn't it?
Yeah, and just be careful of it as well that it hasn't knocked your enthusiasm or your enjoyment because you enjoyed winning. I presume if you've got all these players that have been tapped up, you're quite a good side, and now you think, oh, we might lose, and there might be a touch of ego, which we all do and all have entwined with it. Try and think what other things you really like about being a coach. And I get it, because it's not about that for me, because I'm not a team, but I grow attachments to these children, and you have banter with them and you bond with them, and then you might get a text saying, oh, he's joined a team, training clashes, thanks for everything you've done, see you later. And you're just like, no, I've only got a chance to say goodbye, you know. It's you do feel like you've been treated badly, but as my other half's always telling me, you've got to try not to take it so personally. And it is very, very difficult because I do it. But try and think that it's not anything personal against you. It's just they're trying to do what they think's best for their child in that moment, and they've had someone else in their ear saying this is the best thing for your child by far, and they're going to go and explore that. It's nothing against what you've done or said. It's all over to them.
I don't know if this is the right mindset or not, but I feel like most of the reason people go and try these different teams that are dressed up as an elite somewhere between grassroots and something more than grassroots, even though it's still grassroots. I think the reason is the parents' fear of missing out. So quite often we'll get pulled to one side, won't we, and asked, what do you think about this league that I've been hearing so much about? And then you can see in their eyes, and you could see the way that they're asking the question, that they've already got a fear of missing out, or their child missing out on something that could be magical.
Throwing a friend of theirs is on Facebook all the time with.
Oh, I keep seeing them talking about what a good setup it is and well drilled they are, or some nonsense that doesn't really mean anything but impresses people, doesn't it, at the time? So can you flip that around? What I was saying about it might not be the right mindset. Well, if this is a big fear of missing out, what can you put on that means that they'll have a fear of missing out what your club's doing, whether it's a night out together that you've arranged, and a Christmas party and an end of season do, and maybe a tour or whatever you can organise.
Tours always worked for me. So at the beginning of the year you would set up a tour for the end of the year, and if people wanted to leave, they knew that they were missing out on their tour, especially if you had instalment payments all the way through. Don't sound like you're trapping people, but it's just to give them something else to think about, rather than it's just easy. Or go and have a look at that. We can always go back to Pez or whoever it might be.
And I don't know if that is the right mindset and the right attitude, but can you go toe to toe with them with a fear of missing out? Because if that's the thing, there's some sort of carrot that doesn't really exist, and you've got a real carrot that does actually exist, that is improving children's lives and making all parts of their lives better, then why not think it as a challenge and go, right, I'm going toe to toe with them? And
it might improve what this person does themselves and what they deliver. I mean, don't get too het up about that you're always constantly chasing what other places got. I wrote in my notes beforehand about having your own identity, and I've written here, the most important players are the ones that are there now, and that's always the case. Don't dwell on the ones that have gone. It might have been upsetting, but they've gone now, and the most important ones are the ones you've got now. And keep being you, and keep doing the good work that you're doing. I put here, stand for something. So if your club or your ethos, your philosophy stands for something, it might be that the kids all have equal time and they all enjoy it, and we're a development team and we do things as a club. So as Geoff said, you might have barbecues and nights out and a real family feel, and that's your identity. Then keep doing what you're doing, and you'll find that, as has already happened, players will come back because they like that, or you'll attract new ones, and the ones type of players that you want. But as I've previously said, don't just base it on whether you're winning or losing games, because it's much more important things than that.
And from what I can tell, these are just teams that where you just turn up, you train, you go home, you turn up for a match, you play, you go home. And
yeah, a lot of kids don't even like each other in these teams,
No.
because they've all been tapped up from different teams.
If you get beat, they call it development.
Yeah.
And if you're winning, they call it development. But
We're the best,
really
we're the best team in the world.
Yeah. It's just dressed up as something it's not, as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned.
I think it's very easy to tap up a player if you're from one of these elite teams. You know, you can make it look good. You can make training look good. You know, the kit can look good. You can say, oh, we're playing in a wonderful league. All the best players play in this league. This is the league that all the scouts come and watch. Tiny Tim's already been scouted by this team and that team. I mean, we've seen it all over the years. And I don't know whether there's some course that these people go on, but they certainly learn very quickly to know what parents want to hear to get them across. And it's very difficult as a parent. I think I said it in the last episode. My son boxes, and if England boxing super duper thing set up locally and they said, oh, we really like your lad, he's got potential, could he come over and train with us? For me, it'd be really difficult not to take him. I'm not going to lie, you know, throw in a Boxing England badge on it or something, and I get it. It's tough, but the grass isn't always greener, and what I find happens is a lot of these players, by the time they're 11 or 12, have been around 5, 6, 7 of these organisations or different teams in different leagues, or maybe even in the same elite league, searching for something that's really not there, and which probably, going full circle, someone like this gentleman, I presume it's a gentleman actually, it might not be, this coach has said, you know, there might have been, they had there all along with a nice family club with someone who really cares and wants what's best for them all. Because don't get me wrong, a lot of these managers that are, or people that are tapping up other children, they just want them to come in and help them win a game of football. And if you're a parent of one of these children that's getting tapped up, don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. They want you and your child to come in to help them win a game of football at the weekend, so people can pat them on the back to either further their development and their opportunities, or sometimes because their kid's in the team, I'll get deep now, aren't I? And they, you know, want to surround their kid with the best players so that their kid can have loads of trophies and medals. Or sometimes just because they've got big egos and they want to win everything and play at Football Manager for real. That's quite negative at the end, wouldn't it, Geoff? Didn't mean to go down that rabbit hole, but let's throw it all out there, I reckon. It was all so nice and light and airy, wasn't it? And then I went on a rant. But anyway, keep doing what you're doing. And stand for something, and players will come, and if they leave, they will come back. And unfortunately, tapping up is part and parcel of the game, and it shouldn't be, and I hate it. And if I could think of a way where it didn't happen, the kids do it in school. Managers I've known have sent their own kid in, or spoken to the team captain, or you sit next to him in class, or he goes to your school, can you have a word with him at lunch, and put the pressure on, and it happens. And if anyone doesn't think it does, then you're nuts. Is that a better way to end it?
I do love a Pez rant.
I know, I go off on one.
I enjoy it.
Yeah, it tires me out, Jeffrey. It tires me out. Perhaps I should write a book.
Should we move on to question number 3 before
I think of something else to rant
before
about?
you fall asleep, before you finish your book?
Yes, go on, mate. Actually, the book's finished, Geoff.
It's finished.
When should we talk about that? We'll do it later.
Alright, at the end.
At the end, when everyone's asleep. Go on, mate.
Question number 3. My question is about academy football. My son loves to find space and pass and move, but when he's at academy training and they do small-sided matches, no one else passes. In fact, you see players running into 6 opponents with their head down. And it's encouraged. I get the 1v1 idea, beat the man, etc. But even this surely needs coaching. Do I get my son to come and snatch the ball and copy others trying to take on the team until they lose it, or stick to making the choices he wants on standing off the play, yelling for the ball, which inevitably never comes? And will those coaches recognise his spatial awareness or see it as him not being involved. That's almost like a Pez rant, isn't it?
Oh, that was yeah. You need a drink of water after that one, I think. Jeffrey.
Yeah, I'm gonna have one.
It's something I've come across a few times before, not just at academy football, but all sorts of training. There's no mention of age group here, so it's quite difficult. I mean, if this is happening at under 12s, under 13s, I'd be very, very concerned. But if it's happening at under 9s, or maybe even if it could be even a pre-academy, who knows, which would be under 6s, 7 and 8s, then I wouldn't worry too much. I've written here, don't panic, which again is easy for me to say when your child's sat out on the wing in space waiting for the ball to be played to him and a ball that never comes. And it can be frustrating for him, and it can be really frustrating for a parent watching that happen, because you just want your kid to have an opportunity to show what they can do. And to be honest, while they're out on the wing and they haven't got the ball, they're not really developing. But unfortunately, as I've written in my notes here, children develop spatial awareness at different rates, and at the young ages, most children think football is only about the ball, and they can't comprehend that they can still be involved in the game unless they're chasing the ball or they've got the ball. So it is a bit like a magnet to them at the young ages. And it might be that the coaches there are encouraging them to experiment, to explore, and to learn through their own trial and error. So it might look very chaotic, and not like the real game, because they're not being coached. You stand here, you stand there, you shouldn't be here, you should go there, and all of that kind of stuff. They're just letting them play, and then they're maybe learning about the players that they've got. So they might be taking notes. They might realise, well, this lad's out on the wing, he's never getting the ball, good spatial awareness. This lad does this lad does that, he's very one-footed. And they're trying to find out in their natural state rather than them being forced and then not really knowing what they're dealing with. Like I say, if this is a team that's doing the same thing after 2-3 years, then yes. But if it's quite recent and they're very young, I wouldn't worry and I wouldn't panic. And training's always the important thing. So if the training that they're getting is good, and this is just the match part, I wouldn't worry too much anyway. And maybe talk to the actual coaches and just explain to them what your concerns are. Just be open and honest with them. Say, I think my lad's developed his spatial awareness a bit quicker than the others, so he spends a lot of the game time standing out the wing without the ball. Have you got any suggestions? Because I'm worried that he's going to go under the radar and he's not showing what he can do, or his enthusiasm might be dropping. And any coach worth their salt will help you out with that. So don't panic. It's all very natural. I've seen it a million times, and it can't be forced. Well, it can be forced, but if you force children to go into space when they're not ready, you're kind of taking away that natural enthusiasm they've got to be around the ball. And it makes me laugh sometimes, Geoff, when teams all want their players to be in space, and then what they really want new players coming in is to be busy, ones that get around the pitch and hunt the ball out. And you're like, well, you've coached that out of most of them, because you've said you've got to stand here and you've got to stand there. And so, like I say, they might just be taking a look at their players and seeing what their characters are like at that present moment in time, as then a starting point to build from there and work from. I don't know if that was a rant or not, Geoff. Probably not a rant.
No.
But I waffled, so over to you, mate.
I'm just interested to see how small-sided the game is if you manage to run into 6 opponents with your head down.
I never thought of that.
Coming from a futsal background, it's 5-a-side, isn't it? And I see small-sided games as literally 2v2s, 3v3s, and not really much more than that. It's the odd 4v4, and working in pairs and doing paired work and underlaps, overlaps, crossovers, and different ways of getting movements in away from the ball so that you can create your own space. And the less players you've got, the less options you've got. So it probably will be some more 1v1s, and 1v1 can mean not just the battle between the person who has the ball and the direct defender, but it could be a 1v1 away from the ball and around the ball, can't it? Where you're getting a block and a screen in, or doing a double movement to make a bit of space for yourself. That 1v1 battle could be happening 20 yards away from the ball. So it's not all about a 1v1 direct opponent with the ball, is it? So without actually seeing the sessions and the match play, it's really hard to comment, isn't it, Pez?
Yeah, and knowing what the bigger picture is.
But my first thought is that that's not a small-sided game if you can find 6 opponents to dribble into.
It might be a slight exaggeration.
Yeah.
Head down 6 opponents.
Yeah.
They might get back to me and say, actually, it's 3 opponents, but everyone wants to beat them twice, so put 6. You know, it's like you say, without seeing the session. I think if you're ever wondering what's going on, you've got every right to speak to the coach. Don't become a problem parent.
Yeah.
There's a chapter on that in the book, Geoff. We'll get to that later. Don't become a problem parent, but I think you've got every right to wonder why and inquire as to what the coach is trying to achieve with a certain session. And like I said, they might turn around and say, we want it to make it as chaotic as possible because we want children to learn that maybe that's not the way to do it. What could they do differently because they keep giving the ball away? You never know. Like I say, they might just want to be finding out about their players, and they might have done it or be doing it just to find out which players take themselves away from that and put them into space, and then your son's right top of the tree because that's what he's done. So without knowing what their end goal is for the session or the topic or however long it's been going on for, it's very difficult to comment on. Like I say, don't panic and talk to them, and you know, try and keep your child's enthusiasm up. And if you think he's lacking a bit of contact time with the ball because he's not getting it, then try and facilitate some training where he does get a lot of time on the ball.
Yeah, and also I call it parent blinkers, don't I? Just be careful that you're not just watching the game through your parents' eyes where you're thinking everything's about your child, because it's about every single child that's there. And it might just be because you're looking at it through that lens that all you're seeing is every time that someone might have passed to your child to make them look good, they've turned it down for a different decision, but that child's got every right to make that same decision and make that mistake and have that learning, as your child has when they get the ball eventually, if they do get it. So
it's very interesting to pick up on that something I've given a lot of thought about. When parents are watching a match, they are only ever, as much as they might deny it, but they are only ever watching their child. So when their child's not on the ball, their eyes are on their child. They're not really watching the game, maybe scanning it and corner of the eye, but it's all about their child, and everyone's doing it, which is why there's so many different opinions on the same game. It's like when I watch boxing, I've noticed I only watch my favourite boxer. I don't watch the other one. I watch what that boxer's doing, how they're moving, what they're doing, because I want that guy to win. I've hung my hat on that boxer, and I want them to win. And it's the same with football. So you're seeing probably a very different picture of what's actually going on, but doesn't mean it's not frustrating.
That's a really good analogy, actually, Pez, because there is quite often times where you'll be watching boxing and you've missed an uppercut or a jab or some combination or something that you didn't see.
Yeah, because your focus is only on the one person, and your bias is naturally shifting towards them, so you might ignore certain things, so you didn't see the uppercut or whatever it might be, which is why at the end of a boxing fight, when I hear different opinions from other people, and you're like, well, they're watching the same fight as me, and there's only 2 people in the ring, and it's because you're blinkered, you're not watching the whole picture, you're pinning everything onto your favourite one, and it's human nature, we do that anyway. I think you pick one, don't you, in a 50-50, and then your biases go towards them.
And I think in a really extreme cases of this, we've probably seen parents almost have a vendetta against an under 9, under 10 player because they see that player constantly choosing an option that isn't passing to their child. Yeah. And over the course of a season or two, that can become a real grudge, can't it, for a parent if they're thinking, oh, this child's holding my child back because they're not passing them the ball enough.
Yeah. Well, I've had parents whisper in my ear before, saying, of course he's top goal scorer because he never passes the ball.
Yeah.
Things like that. So yeah, some jealousies come in. Nothing winds other parents up more than a kid who holds onto the ball too long.
Yeah.
A ball hogger, as they call it.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, ball hoggers, however good they are, at whatever level, will give the ball away more than other players. So if your bias is against them or that type of player, you're just going to pick up on the times that they did give the ball away, and sort of ignore the times when they have done something good. Which,
on the flip side, I used to play with a lad who was a ball hog, and it used to infuriate me because
I can imagine, because you're a player.
He would do the same turn every time. Sometimes it would come off. Great, well done. But then he would just keep dribbling until he lost the ball, and there was never an end product. And I don't know, but this was an adult.
Well, maybe if he'd have been allowed to do that as a kid, and we don't know, a coach might have picked up on that and helped him, or he might have learned through trial and error. But he's now experimenting at however age he was in his 20s, and he should have done his experimenting when he was 6 and 7 and got it out of his system and learnt through trial and error. I don't know.
I've got a feeling he'd been like that his whole life.
No one had ever said.
I think plenty of people had told him.
Yeah, well, I played with players like that, and to be honest, I'm probably guilty of it myself at some point. But some of it was an enthusiasm of just wanted to help the team, and I knew I could do it, so I would try it. But yeah, very frustrating for parents. Like I say, I don't think anything winds them up more than a greedy kid, because the ball's not being shared around anybody else.
Yeah.
Whilst that kid's got.
Going back to this question, I don't know. We don't know what age this child is, do we?
No.
But kids, they don't share sweets, do they? If you give them a bag of sweets, they'll eat the whole bag of sweets. Generally, some will, and it sounds like this child probably would share their sweets around.
My child doesn't.
No.
They always want some of mine.
Yeah.
Gives a bite. Constant. Whatever it is, gives a bite.
I wonder where he's got it from.
Yeah. I think we've probably done that as much justice as we can. I would just throw in, especially if it's academy football, trust them, that they know what they're doing, trust the process, and communicate.
Yeah, otherwise what are you doing there?
Yeah, and if it is terrible, don't be scared to pull them out just because you feel you're missing out on academy football. Yeah. Because, their development's much more important than that, and it just might not be for them.
And I suppose, I'm just adding to this again, aren't I? Going on, but...
Fueling my fire, Jeffrey.
Every club is different as well, aren't they? Every club's got a different top-down plan and type of player that they're trying to... So you might go to a Bournemouth and their sessions will look completely different to Southampton. That's not that far away, and... at times are in the same league or the same sort of level in the same league, aren't they? And similar sort of pool of players, similar amounts of money being spent on players and all that kind of stuff. But their academy sessions will look totally different. One will be, can you go from A to B as quickly as you can and then make a recovery run? And the other one will be, can you be creative and stay on the ball and a bit more like this question said with the 1v1s and all that kind of stuff. So it might just completely depend on which academy you're at.
And at what age group. And
if it suits your child with that coach in that moment in time, and then the first team manager might get sacked and the whole top to bottom philosophy of the club changes the next week. So you never know what can happen, do you?
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, when I was involved in academy football, like you say, Bournemouth were very possession-based, passing the ball to death sometimes, very good positional shape, pleasing on the eye, playing out from the back. Spurs, for example, were all about 1v1s. Can you stay on the ball? Can you create? Can you make things happen?
Proper club.
Well, had to throw that in there, didn't you? Didn't think you liked football anymore, Geoff. Thought you were all futsal. It runs deep. Anyway, I hope we've helped with that and not confused you more. But like I say, communicate, don't panic, trust, and keep at it. Whose turn is it, Jeffrey?
It's now an even number, so it's yours, that big long one.
Oh, the last of the big long ones. Right. Cool, deep breaths. I have a daughter that plays under-12s football for a grassroots side. In pre-season, a local academy held elite trials. Recommended to us by her coach, she did them and was successful. The coach did not realise at the time that the elite training clashes with her team training. She's been doing half of her club, then on to the elites straight after, her choice. Now it's dark, that's not possible, and the coach has said if she chooses elites, she will have to start on the bench come game day. Ultimate question is, what should she do? She will improve with the elite training, playing with better players, but miss out on starting games. I have left all this up to her, and she's made all of the decisions around it so far. So, reading between the lines, got an under-12 girl who their team coach has obviously recommended her to an elite place. She's got in and not realising that he stitched himself up a bit because the training clashes, or the training evening clashes, and while she was getting away with going from one straight to the other, and now it's dark, she can't do that. It's not an option. So yes, difficult one, Jeffrey. I say that always when I'm going to throw something over to you. Difficult one, Jeffrey.
Well, is it though? Because the child's making all their own choices.
Yeah.
I almost think a little bit fair play to the coach, because you've recommended someone maybe going further their development elsewhere. It would be really easy for the to say, oh, I've got a really good girl here who's doing really well. I'm going to keep starting her over the ones that are coming to all the training sessions, but they're sticking to their principles and their beliefs and sticking by the players that are at training regardless.
Yeah, I mean, I can say from my own point of view, if I'm running a team, I'm not having anyone playing in my game at the weekend if they haven't trained with the other players. I don't know whether that's right or wrong, and I know some do it. I've got some that come to my stuff that miss their training and then they play at the weekend. But I know that I want to work with my players at training. I want to help develop the team as well as the individuals. I want them to bond. I want them to have experiences together, and then it's probably a bit OTT, but go into the trenches together and try and win a game of football. So
ideal world, somebody would change their training night, wouldn't they? And everyone can do everything that they want to do. But that's a bit unfair to ask everybody to change their routine for around one person as well, isn't it? It's
I said it's a difficult one because for me, and I always say it, training is more important than the matches.
Yeah.
So in black and white, it looks like I would normally say always go where the training's the best, because that's what's important. The matches aren't. So if she sits on the bench, she sits on the bench. However, I don't feel it's as easy as that, because there's so much else that's important with playing with your friends, and being together and trying to get a result and everything that goes with it, and life lessons. And she might start feeling a little bit ostracised from the group. Oh, here's the special one that doesn't have to train, and can of worms can be opened up here, I think, Geoff. Communication and everyone knowing exactly what's going on and what's happening would have to be absolutely on point for this to work, for everyone involved, the coach, the parent, the child, everything. Which is why I said it's a difficult one, because I'm not involved in it and I don't know these people. Still not sure which side of the fence that I sit on it, and believe it or not, I'm leaning towards, what is it, under 12s? Oh, I don't know. Still leaning towards team and try and find another elite group somewhere that you can go to. Team's so important. Like say life lessons, and not abandoning your team for something better. And I don't know. There's just something in my mind is just saying team, but without knowing what the elite setup's like. It might be, a real opportunity that's, some sort of pro academy level and could lead to better things, and very difficult. And if this person wants to get back to me a little bit more and give me a little bit more context, privately, I would definitely discuss it a lot more and probably be able to give some better advice than what I can with what I've got. I say I always training's the most important thing, but
training without games is a bit like doing rehearsals without a performance. If you're
and it's what you love and what you enjoy, and the game of football, playing is what it's all about. That's what we fell in love with. We didn't fall in love with training. No. We fell in love with playing a match, and kids learn how to compete and how to learn how to win and how to lose. How to win when they don't deserve to, and how to accept losing sometimes when they deserve to win, and that life's unfair. And there's just so much that can be learned in their personal development through playing matches and playing in a team and being part of something. I just leaning towards that. Personal development team, and then football development, maybe the elite, but I think personal development is more important than football development, if that makes sense. I don't know if that did or
because
not.
of your sign off at the end of this podcast, really, isn't it?
Well, yeah, exactly that. And I know it's cliche, but what will make her happy? If she's happy going to the elites and then sat on the bench watching her friends play, then it might be that the coach, because she's a really good player, obviously puts her on the bench for 5 minutes and then puts her on because he feels like he can't start her, and everyone's happy, and that's fine. But like I say, without a little bit more context, it's difficult. But like I say, training will help improve her quicker football wise, but being in a team with your friends and being committed to something will help her personal development much more, and I think personal development's more important. I just repeated myself then, Geoff, but it's an important point.
Hammered home. Well done, Pez.
Yeah, I feel like I need a drink after that one.
Right.
Don't just mean this water, Geoff. God, under pressure this week. These have been really important questions.
Whilst you have your drink, I'll read out question number 5.
I appreciate that.
What is or are the biggest misconceptions about coaching youth football that you hear all the time?
Mate, it's not getting any easier, is it?
I think we've probably mentioned 1 or 2 things along the way.
Well, I read this question about 2 hours ago, again this morning, so I like to go through them, and they just kept popping into my head. Okay. So I wrote a list of ones that we don't have to go through them all, but they just came in.
Now go through your list. Head. Let's hear it.
Well,
Pezzaz's biggest misconceptions.
Misconceptions. I've put that all coaching is the same, that all coaches are the same, that coaching sessions should look good and be mistake-free, that playing matches is more important than training, that players just need an opportunity to get spotted, that playing with and against the best players is key, that goal scorers get noticed the most, that elite leagues are the best place for your child to develop. And that was just literally off the top of my head, which is pretty much what my whole book's written about, is misconceptions in football and educating people, and that's about 240,000 words, so I can't go into them all. Do you want to pick out any of those? Have you got any of your own, Geoff?
Can you just read that last one again?
That elite leagues are the best place for your child to develop is a common misconception. Seems to be a race to get into your local elite league.
And play with the best and against the best and you'll become the best type.
And this is the league that all the scouts come to watch, and we've mentioned a bit of this earlier in an earlier question. I think it's a misconception. Children who are good enough, they don't get missed anymore, which goes into players just need an opportunity to get spotted. That's another misconception. I don't like it. I don't like the way football's going. I think there's so much to be learned. Like I've said, on the personal front, personal development, we've just been through that a lot, of playing with your friends, and there's so much can be learned from playing with players who are better than you and with players who aren't as good as you. If you're only playing against people the same level as you or slightly above, and with players who are only as good as you and above, you're not being stretched either way. You're not There's no leadership about helping improve other players around you and making them look better. And I sometimes feel if you're in a mixed ability team, then you're more likely to scrap and fight for your wins sometimes. Whereas in these elite leagues, I hate to say it, but there's normally 3 or 4 teams that are very good in the league, and they batter the ones that are below them 7, 8s, 9s, 10s, nils, and that's no good for anybody. Because with kids football, it's really, really difficult to get a league of 12 teams that are all very, very equal.
And it will depend on which coach / parent has gone and tapped up, which we talked about.
Yeah, we're going full circle,
haven't we? We've talked about already on this podcast. Who's tapped up the best local talent for their super elite performance development program, whatever they're calling it.
Yeah, what tends to happen is the team that this kid's been tapped up for, they've gone along and they're finding it. Well, then another team comes and taps up the best players from that team, and then you're looking around going, well, half the team's gone. Where have they gone? Oh, they've gone to the team down the road that's second in the league and linked with this pro club. Well, we'll go and have a look there, and you end up just taking your kid round and round and round.
Shall I just go back to the grassroots club I was with originally?
Where he had so much fun.
Where my coach is now disillusioned and really upset with the way they've been treated.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a full circle.
It is a full circle. As long as the training's good and they're getting loads of contact time with the ball, then I don't think you have to be in any wonderful bells and whistles league at all. And I think a lot of parents realise this, and they'll put their kid into an elite league on a Saturday and play with their friends on the Sunday, thinking that they've got the best of both worlds. Again, I don't like that either, for many, many reasons. I wrote a whole chapter on it in the book. You can tell the book's almost out, can't you, Geoff? Just keep mentioning it. But yeah, I don't want to go too deep into each one of these. Anything else there, Geoff? Misconceptions in football?
For me, I only coach futsal now, don't I? And it's parents thinking that they get to a point and then they think their child has to play football to become a better football player. Or they've convinced themselves, right, thank you futsal, thank you Pezzaz, thank you Wessex, pat on the head, pat on the shoulder, pat on the back, thanks for what you've done. But now, because they want to be, all they want to do is be a professional football player, they've got to be playing football twice a weekend and training 3 times a week in football. No more futsal, thanks very much.
Yeah.
So I personally think if you scrapped all youth football and only did futsal, you produce much better football players. And I'm a big believer in, if you only did futsal, you become a better football player. But if you only did football, you might not even become a better football player than you did originally. If you were doing futsal and football together as a dual pathway. So I think my biggest misconception is play football to become a better football player, when you could be maybe trying some other sports and keeping your futsal up alongside it if you're doing futsal. And if you don't know what futsal is, go and try it and see if you don't benefit from the accelerated
learning. We've got a futsal
environment.
question coming up, so we don't need to go too much into the benefits of futsal, because I'm sure we'll hammer into that soon. But yeah, I actually had someone ask me about your sessions. Their kid, very good, puts it all down to playing futsal, and obviously a little bit of you as well, Geoff, that they're as good as they are now, but felt that they would never get spotted by a professional football scout playing futsal. So they were going to leave somewhere where the kid loved and was getting massive benefits from. So probably sacrificing a bit of their development, or a lot of their development, just for an opportunity to possibly get spotted. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I probably get that once a season said to my face.
Yeah.
And then I imagine there's at least 4 or 5 each age group that are thinking the same thing, but are brave enough to say it to me. My thoughts on it are, look at all the legends of the game and see what they did growing up.
Yeah.
It would be some form of, if it was in England, working men's boys club or whatever it was. Gaza playing indoors up north with a lot of other people. If not, it's street football, which is
playground football, yeah.
Futsal in Argentina or Brazil or Portugal or Spain. It's in all the schools before they make a choice, which pathway they're going to choose, and it's quite often a dual pathway around growing up. So, and then looking closer to home, I have had a scout from a pro club come and approach me about a player at a futsal tournament under 16s. So as late on as that, where they're probably not even being looked at their grassroots football clubs, or their elite pretend I'm something I'm not grassroots football clubs. So I've had a scout come up to me at a FA tournament to say, can we speak to the parents of this child that's in your under 16s team? And then Max Kilman got scouted playing futsal for England and is now Wolves captain
in the Premier League.
In the Premier League, playing week in, week out. So the last time I saw him, he was playing against Jacob Wise, which was one of our Pezzaz coaches, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Who's about 6 foot.
Gave him a right old torrid time.
Yeah, Jacob barely got a kick of the ball, and then the next time I saw him, he was marking Harry Kane at White Hart Lane, right at the start of the last season, I think it was. Not White Hart Lane, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, it's called now, isn't it? So, definite misconception, and I've got plenty of stats, and there's plenty more. You've posted just this week about 3 international players that have come through Salisbury and Andover, Pezzaz Street Soccer, growing up playing futsal, that have played for England, Georgia and the USA in this past month.
And the Pan Am Games, USA, I mean, that's a massive thing.
So, yeah.
All from the same sports hall. I mean, it's incredible,
get
really.
Get in touch if you want more stats.
Do you think, I hate to throw it all onto you, but do you think parents are happy to sacrifice their child, maybe fulfilling their potential or their... How do I put this? I think a lot of parents know that their children would be better footballers if they stayed doing one thing, but they sacrifice that for either an opportunity or because football looks like the real thing, and there's this thing that's the adult game. I want my kid playing real football because it looks like the adult game, and I can shout and I can get involved, and it's a little bit about them as well. Sorry to throw that on you.
I think if you put it in black and white like that in front of them, they would say no, 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 no. But the second that choice is there to be made, it's like some dark cloud that just comes over, isn't it? And just takes over, and those parent blinkers, that ego and everything that goes with it, whether they realise that or not, takes over, and they convince themselves because of their own confirmation bias that is, I would only ever make the right choices for my child. And
or worse still, they always make their own choices, and you're like,
of course they do.
Yeah, yeah. It's loads of 8 and 9 year olds make all their own choices, don't they? But anyway, we don't want to go down that rabbit hole, do we?
No.
Anything else in there that are quite...
Well, you had a long old list. I'm sure there's loads in there.
I think actually, with our rants, we've got through most of it. The one we haven't touched on is goal scorers always get noticed the most. It's quite a naive way of looking at it, and I think because goals in youth football are really the only measurable thing, wins and goals, that a lot of parents want their kids to be a goal scorer and score lots of goals because, one, they can have a nice Facebook post about it, and 2, they're the ones that are going to get noticed and might get an opportunity to get scouted for a pro club, which is really disrespectful for all the decent scouts out there that know exactly what they're looking for and what they want. It's not true. It's a misconception. So there we are. I know, because I've been a pro scout for however many years, was it? 5? Something like that. And often I find that goal scorers have... I don't know. The goals actually mask other areas of their game because they think, well, I'm the one that's sticking the ball in the net. They don't need to work on other areas of their game, so they might be completely one-footed. They might only have one trick in the locker that works at whatever level they're at the moment. And when they go up through the levels, that stops working and the goals start drying up. So do not fall down that rabbit hole of just forcing them to score goals, and that means things like encouraging them to be greedy, paying them for goals. If you get a hat-trick today, we'll stop at McDonald's, pound a goal, all that kind of stuff. Don't do it. You're trying to force something in the short term that will have a detrimental effect on them in the long term, without doubt. Because the goals will dry up one day. They will do. And even in the Championship and the Premier League, you get goal scorers who can score at one level and can't at the other. And they get frustrated and get found out, and then they have to drop down a level, and it's the same right the way through all the age groups. Don't put so much emphasis on sticking the ball in the back of the net, even though it is the most hardest thing to do in football. But you have to get the balance right between the other areas of the game. Because I've known goal scorers, Geoff, and they're only scoring because they've got harder kick, because they're 12 years old, but they've got a body of a 15-year-old and they can smash the ball in. And they've got a goal in their garden, so all they do is with their favourite foot is practice smashing the ball at goal, and they might score 4 or 5 goals a game. But actually at football, you throw them the ball, they can't control it, and they're really average or worse than average. And then when the goals start drying up, they've got nothing else to offer the team, and then they're not going to get any opportunities anywhere. Is that another tangent we went on? Was it another rant? I don't know.
No, I think.
And then I think the only other two was that all coaching is the same and all coaches are the same. And I don't even know what my thinking was when I wrote those, but
I'm sure it was you that said to me, "What do you call a rubbish doctor?" Once, wasn't it?
A doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't always say, just because. I think my thinking was, going back to these elite leagues again, I don't really want to keep slating them, but because there are some very good people involved and some good teams and some good setups, but don't think that they're all the same just because they might have a level 3 coach if you're lucky, and they play in a certain league, because all coaching isn't the same and all coaches definitely aren't the same regardless of the level they're at. Cool. Knew that would be a tough one. Tired me out. And that was just off the top of my head, Geoff. I expect there's loads.
Yeah, there's a few things that popped into my head as you've
been
going along. But
do you want to go there, or?
I think when a coach is starting out, even if it's under 6, 7s, 8s, they'll quite often hear the same thing. I'll quite often hear the same thing. I'm just trying to get them to pass and move at the moment. Yeah. They're just trying to get them to do. And it's like, well,
I should have put that one in my list as well, because it's a bugbear of mine. Youth football is not a race to see who can get as close to adult football the quickest.
Yeah, it's not adult football.
It's not adult football. It's kids football. It's called kids football for a reason, because it's played by kids. And I think a lot of adults, because they go and watch every game, think it's about them. And the adults game is completely different. And unfortunately, if you want your kids to be good footballers when they are adults, they have to be allowed to play kids football like kids do. And fortunately, going back to another question, sometimes that's chasing the ball around, making bad decisions, trying to take people on, being selfish, and to a certain extent, as we touched on earlier, you have to allow that, because if you're forcing team shape and tactics, you're missing out on such a wonderful golden opportunity to tap into their naivety of the game, their enthusiasm for the ball, their energy, by trying to force something that's very static that they will get eventually anyway. Because everyone does, don't they, Geoff? Even I know where to stand on a football pitch. But I'm not as good as I might have been, because when I was 6, someone was saying, "No, you need to stand over there." And I'm like, "No, I want the ball. And they say, "No, you can't have it. You've got to stand wide, and then hopefully someone will play the ball to you, and then you've got to quickly, in as few touches as possible, pass it on." And actually, the only way you get good at football is by getting loads and loads of touches of the ball. Which is why training is the most important thing. Because that's where you get your touches in. Your purposeful practice.
It's important for a coach to realise there's a massive difference between a development programme and a performance program, isn't it? And if you're in the Premier League, you're definitely in a performance program, aren't you?
Yeah, and it's a winning business, and
Yeah.
it's all about you're only as good as your last result, and all of those, professional cliches. Your most important game's your next game, and it's win at all costs. It's a results business and all of that. It's not like that in kids football.
It's very easy to listen to a pundit on the telly talking like Roy Keane would about winning being everything and yada yada yada, but they're talking about that game that you're watching on the telly that's a multi-billion-pound business, not kids football.
And as I write in the book, for a child or children to be able to play at pace, elite level pace, 1 and 2 touch football, which is what everyone wants to force, they have to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of hours in contact time with the ball. You have to earn the right through repetitive practice to be able to play 1 and 2 touch. You can't just, you can only play 2 touch now, put them in, pass and move. Doesn't work because they're not getting enough contact time on the ball to actually get good at football. That makes sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Right, let's move on from those because this feels like I've been in a boxing fight, Geoff. Right, is it my go?
6.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's question 6. That's you.
It is me. This is a really good one. I like this one. If my child wants a career in football, not necessarily as a player, other than the FA qualifications, what should they do to help support their future career?
I know you've asked the question, but I think you're probably the best person to answer that I know, because you spend your life trying to help people in this walk of life and in this scenario.
I always say to them, it's not just football. It could be drama, or it could be art, it could be anything. Throw yourself into it, volunteer, find out what's local to you and contact people and ask if you can help out. And I get that quite a lot, Geoff. And then, before long you've given them more and more responsibility, and sometimes you become quite reliant on these people. You like having them around, and an opportunity comes up, and before you know it, they've got a job. So with me, I always like players to volunteer, coaches to volunteer for a certain period of time, and I have no set time. It's not like 2 months, 3 months. It's like when I think they're ready, and I'll put them through their coaching badges, and so I'll pay for that, for the help that they've given me in return, and just help develop them and ask them questions. But I used to say to a lad I knew wanted to be an actor, I said, well, what are you doing? So I'm doing drama at school or college or whatever it was. And what do you mean? So, well, what else are you doing? Nothing. So, well, how many thousands of actors are doing drama at college and school at the moment, and what's going to separate you from them? And there was nothing coming back. So, well, you should be down the local amateur dramatic society and volunteering, painting stages, doing the lighting, learning the trade, behind the scenes, learning how the actors hold themselves and what they're doing off stage, learning how they dress between performances. I don't know, Geoff, because I'm not one, but you get the idea. You throw yourself into it if that's what you're about. And I always find after a few weeks with a few of them, I get a message, not normally from them, but from parents. She was just wondering when he's going to get paid, and you're like, well, he's not. So, not until I think he's ready, or he's got this, that and the other, and then they disappear and you never see them again. Or I'll get messages saying, I really would like some coaching this summer, I really want to develop, and they say all the right things, and they say, well, come and do the summer for free, and then we'll go from there. And they don't even reply to you, and you think, well, I made a good decision there. So if you want to get on in anything in life, throw yourself into it, volunteer, learn, and the best way to learn is on the job. So not from YouTube and courses and things like that, although do that as well. Go along, volunteer, help. Know what it's like when you've got a session plan that's for 12 and only 11 turn up, or you're doing a session with 9 and it's perfect, and one kid says I don't feel very well and sits out, and you've got to adapt. And so you can learn all those little things just by watching and working closely with an experienced coach. And that's the nitty gritty. That's the important things. You know. Again, wonderful session plan, Geoff. Happens a lot, and then not for you anymore. But then you turn up at your 3G or whatever, and it's blowing a gale. The rain's coming down, and you have to think and adapt on the spot.
No, I had to change my court size the other day because it had a leaky roof. So
Yeah.
still adapting now.
And you learn deep
Even
breath,
indoors.
don't panic. And when you've been doing it long enough, you can revert back to other situations, and you can only get experience by getting experience. Happy?
Yeah, and it's similar to the kids as well. It's not a race to get there, is it? It's not.
No.
It's not about putting TikTok videos up and YouTube videos up, saying look at me and what I can do already. And
A lot of them want it in their bio, though, don't they?
Yeah.
In their Instagram and stuff. Picture them in a tracksuit and an England badge and FA qualified coach or something like that, or football coach. And it's not a race. There's no shortcuts in it if you want to be good at it. And you should want to be good at it if it's your chosen trade or something you're passionate about. And to get good at it, you need to throw yourself into it and get some experience. Not just the good bits, experience the bad bits too. And that's how we learn and grow and develop a certain amount of resilience.
yeah, it's something you're very good at, helping people along that pathway.
I try, and they don't always realise that I'm trying to help them. I try stretching them sometimes, and it doesn't always work. But sometimes you have to throw them in the deep end a little bit, and as long as it's safe and it's not gonna, there's nothing too bad can happen. Just go for it. I'll do it with some of my coaches now. I'll say, actually, I want you to take this warm up, throw them on a spot, see how they react, and sometimes they don't realise how much they've learned and what they know. They just need a bit of a push, and you're always there to help them out anyway.
Very good.
Happy?
Yeah.
I like that question. That seems like a more of a not a fun question, but I'm kind of smiling rather than some of the other ones we go too deep, and I feel like we might upset certain people. But I think that one everyone should probably agree with if they think enough about it. Right, is it me, Geoff?
Question 7's me.
Oh, these two are really. I should ask both these because they're really for you.
No, I'm going to ask question number 7.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, because I'm odd and you're even.
Yeah, but it's definitely a question for you. But go on then.
Why does playing futsal enhance your football training? That's a question for you, mate.
Why does playing futsal enhance your football training? Firstly, I don't think there's anything else that's better at creating good footballers than playing a lot of futsal. And I don't care whether people say you should have a balance between futsal and football. That's open to debate, and fair enough. I can see why people would say play both, get a good balance. That's absolutely fine. But I don't think anything accelerates someone's development quicker than playing futsal. And I've written here the reasons why, and just the ones off the top of my head. And Geoff, obviously you're the futsal expert, but affordances for action. So with skill acquisition, that's quite a buzz term, is affordances for action. So basically opportunities for action. There's more of it in futsal than in football. Smaller playing area, less people. You're just mathematics. You're getting more opportunities for action, whatever that action might be. It might be 1v1, might be defending. It could be anything, but you get more of it. So you get more opportunities to make decisions. You get more contact time with the ball. The pace and the speed of the game develops quick thinking players that have good purposeful touch. I was thinking about this morning because I always say it helps develop your touch. And I was thinking actually it helps develop a purposeful touch, because in football, especially when they're playing on quite big pitches, you can afford to have a bit of a dodgy touch in kids football, can't you? So if the ball comes over to you, your first touch you can sort of control it, and your second touch can then put it to where you want it to go, and then you can pass or do whatever you want to do with it. In futsal, your first touch, you really need to know where you want to go before you get it, and that's what you develop. So it's a purposeful touch towards what your next action might be. You don't just stop it and then work out, but in football you can get away with that. So I put it's without doubt an accelerated learning environment. And if you have futsal anywhere near you and you want your kids to, like someone said earlier, catch up. Did we say futsal? Didn't, did we? Wow. Throw them into futsal if you can. Undoubtedly, not only will they catch up, so if whoever wrote question number 1 still listening, not only will they catch up, they probably will overtake the rest. It's that good, and it's that much acceleration. Even if you don't understand it, you don't get the game, think mathematics. More time on the ball, more opportunities for action. Dead simple.
Well answered.
Thanks, mate. Did I steal a lot of that from you?
No. You said that I was the expert, but I'm only got any knowledge because of you, really, mate. So.
Oh, I thank you.
Thanks
It's the
for
nicest thing
everything.
you ever said to me. It must be almost Christmas.
It's not true, mate. I quite often say I like your hair.
Yeah, you do, because I haven't got any. So I like what you've done with your hair. Yeah, cheers, mate. It's the same as it's been the last 20 years. Thanks for noticing. Yeah, so obviously, as everybody knows from listening to this, we're big advocates of futsal in different ways. To be fair, Geoff loves futsal. He loves the game of futsal. He loves the competitive nature of futsal from professional level all the way down. He loves the team game, everything about it. I love futsal because it helps develop better footballers, and I still prefer football as a game to futsal, but I can't see or come across anything quicker and better at developing footballers than futsal, and that's why I love it so much. So we both love the game, but possibly from different angles. Or you're just a bit more advanced with it.
I wouldn't even say that, to be honest.
No. Well, you like the tactics of it as well, don't you? And I'm very naive with the tactics of winning a game of futsal. You know, your formations and your tactics, because they're very... Is advanced the right word? They can be.
Yeah.
At the top level.
At top level, you might say that, but it's also only ever 5-a-side, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or less if you get a player sent off. But
things like the butterfly formation and things like that, and your pivots and playing off the pivot, and I get a bit, I don't know, not confused, but it's not where my passion lies. My passion lies in skill acquisition and developing very young footballers. I don't think it's difficult at football. It might not be the same with futsal, I don't know, but I don't think it's difficult to drill a bunch of children to try and win a game of football. But it's very, very difficult to help those same kids become good footballers, even if they're winning every week. And that's what I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
Helping children fulfil their potential. And futsal, great tool for doing that.
I would guess that 99.9% of people that are involved in futsal found it for the same reasons that me and you did too, which was to help develop football players, and then the ones that go on and have a real passion for the game and go into it very in depth are the ones that just get hooked in with how exciting the game is, really, and all those reasons that help you become a better football player are the constraints of the game, aren't they? Which is the ball's slightly smaller, has foam around it so it stays on the floor more, so you tend to play
it's not
quicker.
like 5-a-side, a big furry tennis ball that I used to play back in the day, and you just hoof it up front.
And then you play to lines and it's stop clock, so there's not like the Tottenham-Chelsea football match the other night where I don't know what the percentage the ball was actually in play, but it was 40-something, I think. It was something ridiculous, where I know they played extra time at first half and added on time, in the second half as well. But the actual percentage the ball was rolling was pathetic. Whereas in futsal, it's
always the same because the clock
every
stops.
minute the ball's in play, the clock's rolling, and every time it's out, it stops. So
you're not allowed to play off the walls, which again I used to play off the walls when I was a kid, and I remember people telling me, it's really good for you because you're doing learn how to do 1-2 passes and all that. But it's
you combine it with yourself, not with somebody else, aren't you?
And it's not like having lines to play to.
Yeah.
It makes it more like football as well because you've got lines. Like I say, very very important part if you can.
The indoor football I played growing up probably hindered my development because I could literally punt it from one end to the other.
And the big letterbox size goals.
And probably score most of the time and be a hero. Whereas
stick it in the corner, don't you? No kid's going to get that.
Futsal forces you to play in tight spaces, make quick decisions, do everything you want to see a good football player be able to do.
Yeah,
over and over and over and over again.
I hate to say it again, but I write about it in the book that I don't think parents who haven't played at a very high standard of football realise how quick the game is. And I tell a little story in my book when I was at Charlton Athletic, and we were on an away trip, and we stopped off halfway somewhere in the Midlands, don't know where we were going, and we'd hired somewhere to do a training session, and they were doing sort of a match at the end of the training, and one of the lads sort of got a bit of a knock, and Alan Pardew said to me, just gave me the nod, "You." Yeah.
I never heard this.
Have you never heard this? So I ended up playing
no.
playing with championship players, some who played numerous games in the Premier League. At left back, I was a right winger, playing at left back, and I played a bit, and I thought I was quite good at football, but the pace, and obviously the lads were bantering and trying to wind me up, so they were fizzing it into me, and you concentrate so hard on, I've got to bring this under control, but then you're not thinking about what you're doing with it next, and then someone's on you. And I don't think parents understand the level and the pace and the quickness of thought and how quickly they ping this ball about to each other. So your child might be standing out in an under-9s, under-10s league at the moment in your local Sunday league or whatever it might be. And they think, oh, they're very good in this, but there's levels to go through, and they need to keep developing, and they need to develop that speed of thought and know that their touch is so good that they can deal with the ball getting fizzed in at them at 1,000,000 miles an hour and still make a good decision. And I was shocked. I couldn't believe how quick it was. And I watched every training session. I was on the bench for every match. And you still don't know. So it's as close to the action as you can be. And okay, you can see it's quick because you're that close. But when you're actually in it and you're expected to make decisions and worry about things that are going on off the ball and what you're going to do when you're on it, and incredible. And I think futsal really aids that because it's tight spaces, quick thinking. And going back to another question, this just popped into my head. About where we have work experience, people on work experience and stuff. It might be a good idea at some point to, if you could get the same player, maybe like Henry from your futsal, who plays both football and futsal, to send a work experience kid to count how many touches they get on the ball in their football, and how many they get in their futsal in the same weekend. I think you'd be absolutely, not you, but you in general, would be flabbergasted at the amount of touches that they get. If they're on the ball more, that means more affordances for action, which means more decisions, which means more failure as well. It's another one I've missed out. You fail more in futsal because you're on the ball more, and you learn from failure. So everything's accelerated, all the good things and all the bad things, all the learning opportunities. So there we go.
Very good, Pez.
Yeah, I'm smiling again. I
Good.
quite like that one. I thought that was me just going to be asking you and you doing your bit, but you are Mr. Futsal.
But you're way more knowledgeable than you give yourself credit for.
I'm probably Mr. Skill Acquisition, I guess, which is where my passion lies. Right, is it me now? It is, isn't it? This should be a nice, easy one to finish on because it's been a bit of a marathon and it wasn't supposed to be, was it? Question number 8, and our final question. Who do you think is the best futsal player in the world and why? And in brackets, past or present. Over to you, Jeffrey Arthur Bonner.
It's dead easy, isn't it? Yours will be your son. When he was playing.
When he was playing futsal, he was my favourite futsal player, that's fair enough.
And mine's both my nephews. Done, yes. Completed it, mate.
Actually, you don't know me as well as you think, because I was going to say myself. So.
No, I do know you well enough.
No, who is the best player in the world?
He's injured at the moment, but probably Farrell, who's the top man. The pivot is called in futsal.
What's the pivot? Explain to
Striker.
Quite
often a big, strong player.
Because sometimes in football, pivot's a defender, aren't they?
They're the holding midfielder normally in
Yeah.
football, aren't they? But pivot just means fulcrum, doesn't it? So pivot in football is the person who sprays it right to left and switches play.
Mhm.
Fulcrums it across. Pivots it around the pitch. And in futsal, it's just flipped round because it will go into the pivot and they'll hold it off and play out from the right to the left to set up the attack. But historically,
Sorry, who was that player again?
Ferrao,
And who does he play for?
Barcelona
It's Barcelona.
and Brazil.
Barcelona and Brazil.
And I got to watch him play live twice now, I think. We went to Barca together, didn't
Oh, did he play then?
I think he might have been there. I'm just trying to think. But we were so excited about watching Ricardinho play, and
Yeah. Seamless there, mate, the way you went from
yeah, we saw
present to past.
Ricardinho do a flip flap.
Yes.
To beat a player, which was
So a few years ago, I randomly messaged Geoff and said, let's go to Barcelona and watch some futsal. And Geoff, being his normal self, went, oh no, I've got so much on, all that. So I pretty much had to drag him there. And we went to watch Barcelona in Barcelona versus Inter Movistar.
yeah.
And yes, Ricardinho was playing. He was by far the best player in the world by then, I imagine. My limited knowledge. But he was wonderful, and it was a wonderful experience.
Since then, somebody brought up about Lozano's had a couple of knee injuries since then, and I don't think you'd even realise that you'd watched him play when it was brought up over a Zoom during lockdown.
I thought I ate plenty of Lozano
Yeah, that's what your reply was. It made me laugh because you saw him kick off that game and captain the Barca team. And before that, Falcao for Brazil, probably.
He's like the Pele, isn't he? Like
Yeah.
the god of futsal, I guess. The first and the best.
Probably controls the ball, and a bit like Zidane would in football. Like any part of his body just kills it dead. Was unbelievable.
Yeah. I remember someone when we talked about him once before saying, trying to have a bit of a dig at futsal, saying he would be no good at football. And it turned out that he'd won the Copa Libertadores, the South American Champions League with some team at football.
I think that might have been a bit of a PR stuff. I'm not too sure about.
It's on
him going
Wikipedia,
across
mate, so it must be true.
Going and playing, but
Must be true.
yeah.
But he was a good footballer as well.
There's no doubt all these people would be decent football players if they transitioned across. But probably won't get talked about enough if people are asked who the best futsal player in the world is. It's goalkeepers, and they just are excellent at every single level.
Because you have to be nuts to be a keeper and double
Yeah.
nuts to be a futsal keeper. You don't even wear gloves.
No,
They're nuts.
and they're quite often playing with hand injuries and dislocated fingers, but their technique and just some of the saves that you see on, in England playing, going around at any level, tier 3, 2 or 1.
Bravery.
It's just
The athleticism.
they are insane, the goalkeepers,
Yeah,
and now they're playing more and more with their feet, and they're coming out and playing fly keeper. Whereas 10 years ago, it'd always be an out-court player that would go and be a fly goalkeeper and play over the halfway line because they can use their feet. And
sorry to butt in. Is fly keeper just a futsal term? I'll tell you why I say it, because when the Spurs keeper, when they were down to 9-0 the other night, he was coming out. I think it was Jamie Carragher said, "Oh, he's playing fly keeper," and I thought,
yeah,
"No way, Jamie Carragher knows anything about futsal."
He was actually playing like sweeper keeper.
Sweeper
what you'd
keeper,
call it, really.
But he said fly keeper, and it stuck in my head.
I mean, even when we were kids in the playground, you'd shout "fly keeper" and you'd just come running out, wouldn't you? So I think it's both terminology, but it's very specific to futsal because the goalkeeper can only have it once in their own half in a possession for 4 seconds, but as soon as they go over the halfway line, they just become an out-court player.
Yeah.
So getting a goalkeeper over the halfway line means you've created a 5v4 overload.
I heard someone the other day when Edison was playing so well for Man City and spraying the ball about, and how much trust that they've got in him and Pep's got in him, that it's getting towards the point where it's like having 12 outfield
Yeah.
11 outfield players, because he's that good, so he can push on and they can trust him to have the ball very high up the pitch and not give it away. And they're having a debate, is that where it might get to in
why
15,
not?
20 years' time, that your keeper comes out and actually gets more involved.
And there are trends that go from futsal into football, like the 4-0 tactics that you were talking about earlier. I think you mentioned, didn't you, or the butterfly you said,
yeah,
which is a 4-0 movement. Is playing without a striker, so without that pivot in futsal, without the front man. And when lots of teams started doing that in futsal, so did Spain and Barcelona play without a striker and that front man, target man, to try and so you get that overload. And the Iniesta quote is "take your mates with you," isn't it, through the thirds? And that's exactly what you're trying to do there. So there are already trends that have come across in the style of play.
Yeah, and you see, going back to goalkeepers, you see their body shape when they come out very futsal style now. A lot of the keepers do, especially the Spanish ones. De Gea was the first one I noticed. He would come out in that, spreading shape, one knee down, and I don't know what it's called, but
K shape. So it used to just be Peter Schmeichel's come out and star jump, didn't it?
Yeah, with everything
to cover all the angles of the goal.
Yeah.
But now I think even in the football size goal, goalkeepers have realised that K shape. You've got one leg covers the back post, one covers the front foot, covers the near post, and then your arms do the top corners.
Not making, because so many goals put through the keeper's legs, either by design or by accident. So they're sort of trying to cover that as well. I've noticed a lot more of that futsal shape in Premier League.
So I'm not a goalkeeping expert, but the goalkeepers everywhere in futsal are, like you said, they've got to be crazy to do it, but they're also technically unbelievable and just so efficient with their distribution, with their hands and with their feet now, that it would be unfair for me to overlook all the goalkeepers.
I know the answer to this, but do you think then, if you've got a child who's a budding goalkeeper, that futsal be a good place to bung them?
100%, because
could it even be more important maybe for keepers, because it's so important now to get good with your feet.
Just like the repetitions in futsal for an out-court player, an outfield player in football, they tend to get so many more repetitions of making saves if they're playing a game, but also the coaching's really, really specific. So they'll get a tennis racket out on a tennis ball and they'll literally get you making that K shape to make sure a tennis ball won't nutmeg you. So there's no way a football's going through it if you then go back to football, let alone a futsal ball. So
I love goalkeeper coaching because it's so specific.
It's individual, isn't it? Which is everything you love about coaching.
Yeah, and still have the belief that football should be treated as an individual sport until the age of about 12, but I'm not going down that rabbit hole now because we have been chatting for almost an hour and a half, Geoff.
All right.
And I think we should probably think about wrapping it up. If you do have any questions, and obviously we've had some really long ones today, if you've got any questions, whatever length, then please do send them in. You can do it by, we'll put some links at the bottom of this one, but you can email them into us or find us on our YouTube channel, even we're on YouTube, Geoff, which not a lot of people know about. So we do film these and put them on YouTube, and on our social media platforms. We've got Geoff Bonner and you've got Perry Cockin. Not difficult to find, and I run Pezzaz Street Soccer. So find us somehow, send us a question. We will put it on the list and answer it in due course. Hopefully by the time the next episode comes out, the last one of this series, my book will be out, so we'll be able to have a chat about that, Geoff, and hopefully you'll have a copy in your hands that we can talk about, which would be nice, very, very exciting. And don't forget, please, if you've enjoyed it, or even if you haven't, please subscribe and share it along, because it does help to grow the podcast, and we do it for absolutely nothing. In fact, I think people would be horrified about how much money it costs me per episode to actually put this on. But someone who has helped is my friend Scott, who has helped us a little bit by sponsoring us, and his company is SR Health, Safety and Engineering Limited. So all thanks to them. And as always, never forget, football isn't that important, but but children are. We'll see you next time.